Greetings, everybody. Welcome to this little Discord video I'm doing. I had some random ideas for community stuff to do on my Discord to turn into videos. And so this one, I asked people on my Discord here, hey, got a random idea for a video. Tell me, what is your desert island album? If you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, what would it be? And give a short paragraph as to why it's your choice. And then I'm going to compile them all into this video. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who have had a chance to submit stuff on here. Some of you guys submitted more than one. How dare you? Anyway, let's just go through them one by one. For albums that I haven't listened to, I'm going to sample a little bit. And ones that I think I'm going to be listening to later, I will try not to sample a bunch. So we start with our good boy Frostbite here. Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. I have not heard this album. I have heard, obviously, Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine. I think they were in Guitar Hero, a Walk Band. They were in those games. So here's Appetite for Destruction here. I'm just going to sample a few of these songs and just kind of see what they sound like. Okay, so not my thing at all. Which, no surprise. A couple interesting ones on there, though. I think it's My Michelle? Yeah, and then Paradise City above it started out, kind of caught my attention. But anyway, he says, this is one of the few albums I could give a 10 out of 10 rating. It's the lens I judge/compare all other albums to. Guns N' Roses, and more specifically Slash, are the ones that really made me an active music fan. I'm a rocker, and this album is hard rock perfection. The production is crisp and clear while still sounding raw. The songs are incredibly catchy without sounding cheesy or forced. Axl has an incredible range and can sing in many different kinds of voices. There's just a groove to the whole album. You can feel the electric energy. There's a reason it's the best-selling debut album of all time. Yeah, man, Welcome to the Jungle and Sweet Child of Mine, you hear that, all over the place. And I didn't know this was their debut. That's very interesting. Coming out of the gate pretty strong. Pretty strong indeed. All right, we have Jos Bus. Ciao, it's a bus. In Rainbows, Radiohead, my second favorite album of all time. The album has so much variety, and the quality stays high through its tight 10-track nature. Tom York's vocals sound incredible, and in my opinion, all the band members have their golden moments, like groovy bass lines, atmospheric guitar work, and just overall showcasing their versatility as a band. I won't go as far as saying it's the greatest album of all time, but for a desert island album scenario, I'd have to go with that since it's got so many moods and emotions packed in it. It has a bit of everything, and I don't seem to get bored with it every time I listen to it. I think this is a pretty good choice as someone who is a Radiohead fan, and In Rainbows is my favorite Radiohead album. It's such a good mashup of all of the stuff that they had done previously while still being very accessible to people, because it's experimental and artsy in a way, but the rock is very not mainstream, but very simple and accessible, and people who get into mainstream rock can probably get into this without too much difficulty. You listen to a song like Body Snatchers or Jigsaw Falling Into Place. Those are very simple rock tunes that are actually complicated, below the surface. But I think this would be a great choice for a Desert Island disc, which is a Radiohead track as well. Pisces, Sounds of Love, Hounds of Love, Kate Bush. It's really difficult to describe how this album has been able to speak not only to me, but to a lot of other people, artists, and any music listener ever since it was released back in 1985. What this album contains are songs that speak to the emotions and feelings that any person can possibly feel. Love, fear, hope, uncertainty, anger, and the list could honestly go on. It's understandable that most people will not get why this album is so beloved and renowned, but I feel that this album represents more than just a very well-produced, unique, and very catchy art pop album from the 80s. represents a time in a listener's life that they could never forget. The feeling that they had once they heard Running Up That Hill for the first time in their life. The shock they had when listening to Waking the Witch. The wonder and soothing feeling they felt once And Dream of Sheep played. And that's something that can never be replicated or even felt once you've either listened to it one or all the songs included in the album. This album has different meanings to anyone who listens to it. That is something that is rare with most albums. I would be glad, fully happy on a deserted island for the rest of my life if I had this album with me at a moment's notice. An obvious 10 for 10 out of me. So this is an album that I do love quite a bit. I haven't... This last half, which is like a different section, is it called The Big Sky? Or something? I don't remember. Well, Big Sky is a track. I don't remember what this last half is called. And I haven't listened to it in a long time. I really need to go back through this album again. But Running Up That Hill, Hounds of Love, and Cloud Busting, I come back to all the time. There's just something comforting. I don't quite know. There's like a nostalgia in it without sounding like sad, especially with Cloud Busting. Very unique art pop album, and that's a pretty solid choice if I do say so myself. Our good boy Cat here, Gran. This is a hard question since there's no doubt if I choose one of my favorite albums like TVU and Nico or Remain in Light, I will probably end up growing incredibly tired of these songs since there is only one way for me to enjoy them in the way they were intended to, in order. If I was stuck with only one album and it was a record with a formulaic track list of songs that I already know and I like, I would hypothetically be stuck listening to the exact same songs in the exact same order every single time until I hypothetically die. Little did you know that Gran is actually immortal. He doesn't like to admit it. So I'd say I'll have to choose an album with a sporadic, slightly looser and freeform listening experience so I'd ensure that I can listen to it at any which way and still enjoy it. And ambient music or a really great piece of jazz is perfect for that. I'm going to say Pharoah Sanders' Karma. Probably my favorite jazz record right now, and a 10 out of 10, though not at all one of my favorites of all time. There's so much about the sound of that record, however, that I can get lost into and never get tired of. Extremely compelling spiritual piece, and there's a lot of meat to chew on. An ambient album like Saw 2 wouldn't be, I don't know what Saw 2 is, wouldn't be a bad pick either since it's equally so diverse, so large, and perfect for zoning out, background listening, or analyzing with my full attention. This is Saw 2. Not the soundtrack for the movie, but this is Saw 2, which I haven't listened to this whole thing, but I do like some of the tracks on here. It's pretty good. So I haven't listened to this one yet, and it's been recommended to me in a jazz playlist, so I'm actually going to hold out on this one for now. But yeah, I could see jazz or ambient being a good choice, because it's like it's not necessarily like a pop thing that you can get like used to and accustomed to and bored with. It's something that you can't really get used to. I mean, I don't know. It depends on how much you listen to it, but ambient and jazz, it's a good choice. The boss, our resident Ween expert, he picks Chocolate and Cheese. At first, I thought I would pick my favorite album. Then I realized that most of my favorite albums are short and concise, and if it was going to be the only thing I was going to listen to, it needed to be diverse. Since perfection can only mentally occupy you for so long, even if you could listen to the album on shuffle, let me tell you, this album runs the musical gamut and has songs ranging from pop, rock, and soul to more experimental musical pieces. It does help this album was made by professional songwriters and musicians. Yeah, Ween is really eclectic. If you were stuck with just the Ween discography, you'd have like country, psychedelica, punk. I mean, they did everything. Maybe still do everything. I don't know. They haven't come out with an album in so long, but interesting choice for sure. Shiftless When Idle says, Exile on Main Street, Rolling Stones. I will not sample this right now because this is one that I believe I will be doing at some point. This was an album I absolutely hated upon first listen, thinking it was overhyped trash with a few decent songs. After the fifth or sixth time listening to this album, its character hit me. It was an amalgamation of American roots music, blues, country, R&B, folk, gospel, rock and roll, put in weary, decadent world that revels in the hedonistic sensations of sex. I don't want to say bad words because monetization, fighting, and drug use. It's filled with a dark, grimy sound that illuminates its irrelevant attitude. Irrelevant attitude? It's the beauty of the America's past wrapped up with a bleak view of its current direction. Interesting. No comment. I haven't listened to it, but interesting. Then we have RKHC. He likes to write in very extensive paragraphs. We need someone to do a TLDR for all of the stuff he says in the Discord. To be honest, it's a bit of a pet peeve of mine how album choices are often framed under this whole desert island narrative, because it's just asking for the answer to involve some meta-level consideration that has nothing to do with anything actually meaningful about its value. AKA, my desert island book is the one that will help me survive in the wilderness and that will keep me occupied from losing my sanity. The album that I reliably love most and can never seem to get sick of is Tagomago by Can. Again, another album that I will be listening to. It's the only album I've come across where every track in the first 35 minutes of its runtime would legitimately be in the running for my favorite track of all time. Paper House, Mushroom, Oh Yeah, and Hallelujah are all brilliant. I tend to think of the progression of different genres as a pendulum that swings back and forth, with each thing usually having some trade-off, strength, and limitation that the next genre addresses. Jazz is alive but impenetrable, rock is universal but limited, prog rock is ambitious but stuffy and has its head stuck up its own ass, punk is organic, guttural, and primitively satisfying but dumb and simplistic, ambient is atmospheric but only passively engaging and memorable, etc. For me, Tagomago and prime krautrock in general is where that pendulum ends up, with the perfect balance of the right elements. The music is as accessible, polished, and immediate as the best of rock, as ambitious and forward-thinking as the best of prog rock, and primitively infectious as the best of punk, as alive, dynamic, and loose as the best of jazz, and atmospheric, textured, and spacey as the best of ambient. What's typically cited as a negative is the too lengthy experimental tracks in the second half that admittedly take forever to warm up to, but eventually they do get there and end up feeling pretty special as well. Well, that's got me really interested to listen to Tagomago now, that's for sure. But that's a really good point, that certain genres have like weaknesses. It's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors effect, where everything kind of has its Achilles heel. And I would say that my Desert Island disc would probably be something that would kind of circumnavigate those pitfalls. Something like In the Airplane Over the Sea, which I could probably listen to quite often and never get tired of, because it goes not necessarily genre-wise in so many different directions, but it is eclectic enough for me to navigate some of those pitfalls. Sponge, who has no cough now, thank heavens. Nonstop Erotic Cabaret by Soft Cell. This is far from my favorite album. It is just an album that I can play on repeat and still find more and more enjoyment. At first I thought I was just going to pick my favorite album, but then I realized that all my favorite albums have hardly any repeatability factors or are so sad it's hard to keep a tear in. This album is the perfect album, enough energy to dance to, but not too much energy that you think it's just drearing on and on. This is a perfect album to be stuck on an island with. It has the perfect number of tracks, right on the 10 mark. Yes, it is a bit short at only around 40 minutes, but that never stops me playing over and over again for some reason. It's an album I can fall asleep to and listen to any day of the week. Every single track has that pizzazz to it, its own special sound. I believe I have heard the opening track on this thing. Get away. Yeah, I haven't heard any of these other ones. I'll sample them real quick. It's like, I know it's 81, so it's pre-Smiths, but it sounds like synth pop Morrissey almost. Has almost a punk energy to it. Interesting. All right, our boy Z-Twig, he has picked 5. How dare you cheat? First one, Caretaker, Everywhere at the End of Time. 6.5 hours of music that you can just fall into and be with forever. While yes, the album can be depressing, most of the time I can just vibe with the ambient track, stages 4 through 6, or I could listen to the melodic sections 1 through 3. I'd probably never listen to it as a whole because how depressing it can be if you do. There's so much to offer in this long project that I could never get sick of. It is really long. I don't know if I would choose it as a Desert Island disc because I think it's I don't want to say too gimmicky, but too specific of a tone. But it is a lot of music. And it is quite an interesting listen, that's for sure. Second, Meat Beat Manifesto, Subliminal Sandwich, another record that is longer than 2 hours. This record just put me in a good mood by how exciting and engaging the record is to listen to. All the samples and dub beats just work together to create a masterpiece that you could put on loop forever. I'm always trying to find new things about it every time I listen because how many samples there are on the record, and also because the record is so diverse. It's a very Twig choice. Number 3, Fishmen's, their live album. Another record that is longer than 2 hours. This album is just utter bliss. Every single song works so well together to create this amazing experience. Because the record covers a lot of styles from dream pop to dub to reggae, I feel like I could always come back to it. Also, I could listen to the long season version of this album forever on loop. That track is the best thing ever created in music history. Well, I agree with all that. That's a really interesting choice for a Desert Island disc too, because there's a lot. It is long. It's a great live album. It does have a good span of styles in the genres. I could see myself choosing that perhaps as a Desert Island album. It's one of the few like albums / tracks or whatever with long season where it's like I can come to that thing no matter what mood I'm in, you know, and I'll get something out of it. And there's very few tracks or albums that do that for me, and this live album is certainly one of them. Sonic Youth SYR6. You really think that there would be a list of mine without these guys? This album is an interesting one because it's 1.5 hours of pure drones and sound collage. Why I chose this was because whenever I listened to it, I could just fall into the soundscape and just vibe forever to it. Every single track offers something different. Part 1 is a wall of sound type tracks with a ton of percussive layers. Track 2 is more dreamy but with a dark undertone in the vocals. And track 3 is just bonkers. Number 5, Tangerine Dream Zeit, 2-disc version. An utterly transcendent record in which I can fall into the soundscape. This is definitely my favorite Tangerine Dream, particularly because of how long and chill it is. While the record can be a bit slow-paced, the 2 extra live tracks on this album I could play on loop forever just because of how great they are. Lol, that was a lot. It was. Let's check out this Tangerine Dream. You know, Tangerine Dream is a band I've wanted to get more into. I definitely want to react to, I believe it's called Phaedra, their like biggest one. But they've done so much, and I really vibe with like the kind of electronic ambient stuff. It's almost like film soundtrack, which I know they've done stuff like that. But yeah, dig Tangerine Dream. A very interesting list right here. The only one I would agree with would probably be Fishman's, but that's why he's the King Contrarian, man. And finally, Ralph right here, our Polish fellow. Really interesting list here. Molchat Doma, I don't know how to pronounce this. Post-punk album from Belarusian band from Minsk, released in 2017. Molchat Doma Etazi. Second album from Molchat Doma, released in 2018. Really great album inspired by 80s Soviet bands like Kino or Bioconstructor. Then we have Bioconstructor, Tansy Po Video, the only album of the band. They made music inspired by Kraftwerk and Depeche Mode. And then Kino, Grupa Krovi, legendary Soviet band from Petersburg. Album is about Soviet intervention in Afghanistan. Yeah, this guy knows about like Eastern Europe and stuff like that way more than any of us in the Discord. And like everything he references, Ralph, like I have no idea what you're talking about half the time. And I'm like, I just live in such a different world. So his first one here is this, post-punk. Who do you think you are, Peter Hook? Interesting. Very Joy Division. So two guys submitted late on this Discord thing, but I'm going to include it in the video. It's just going to be really rough and really quick, but here it goes. So Ritz also picked the live album from Fishmen's. I know Z-Twig already mentioned it, but it's probably my favorite album as of right now. 2 hours of amazing content make it perfect to be a one final album sort of thing, and the tracks fit different moods very well. There's upbeat, dreamy dub, reggae bangers on there. And then there's tracks such as the 16-minute Urameki in the Air, a melancholy slow burn that entrances me every time I listen to it. Not to mention Long Season, probably the best things humans ever made. LeMayo is not wrong. I just think this album is perfect for a desert island since it offers track to track of amazing material that I would never get tired of because it's variety, replay value, and length. And then Not Wombat contributed also today, like almost like 24 hours late. It's got to be Velvet Underground and Nico for me. If I'm on a desert island, I might get sick of songs that would start to sound the same as others on the album. VUN has beautiful songs and some really ugly bangers. I don't think I could ever get sick of the melody on Sunday Morning or the piano riff on All Tomorrow's Parties, which is so freaking good. That's my favorite song on the album. And I could finally understand the Black Angel's Death song if I listened to it enough. Yeah, maybe a bit cliche, but definitely the one for me. That is also a good choice. It's as far as a rock album goes, there's enough rock and enough pop on that thing, and it's so interestingly composed and produced and performed that I wouldn't say no to that being the only album I had. So you guys are lucky that I'm gracious and I love you to include you in this video. Be quicker next time. If I had to pick one personally, it's a really tough one. Like I said, In the Airplane Over the Sea is a good candidate for me. I would pick something like Lift Your Skinny Fist, but that would just depress the hell out of me. In Rainbows is a solid choice. Teen Dream would be a good choice too. It's really hard to say. I don't know. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And I also want to know your guys' Desert Island album choices and why you think that you would pick that. Why you would pick it. And of course, check link in the description. Check out this Discord if you want to partake in stuff like this. I will be planning an upcoming like bracket elimination competition in this voting channel for album artwork. We're gonna do like everyone's gonna submit what they think is the best album artwork, and we're gonna like upvote and downvote the different ones to kind of get them down to a manageable size. Then we'll do a bracket elimination for a community driven democracy choice of what the best album cover is. That's all. So I hope you enjoyed. Again, comment what's your favorite Desert Island album, and also check out the Discord because we have more stuff like this coming up. And that is it. Thank you for watching. Godspeed.